Hello, this is your host Akhil Navluri, and welcome to the brand new episode of the Techospace podcast series. In this podcast episode, firstly, it's a special episode for me because I'm having the supreme pleasure, to be collaborating with my former boss and one of the most eminent and prominent industry leaders of the IT space, and also he's my mentor, and he was the person who gave me that huge inclination, to work and to move towards the IT space. So throughout my journey and throughout my tenure with my former company with the Yexle Limited, I really did really good things and came up with good marks because of my former boss. And welcoming to you all Mr. Vijay Poondy, who happens to be the managing director of Yexle Limited company, and he's based out of Milton Keynes, United Kingdom. So Vijay, it gives me a supreme pleasure to welcome you to this podcast episode of mine. So Vijay, how are you doing, and how are things in Milton Keynes at the moment?
Absolutely fine, Akhil. Lovely to catch up with you again. I know we tried to get this recording done a couple of times in the past, but as they say, third time lucky. So
Exactly.
all good, all set here. I wouldn't call it very sunny here, but it's getting there. We recorded almost every single day having rain here, but I guess it's changing for the better. Like you said, you also did a shift from and non-IT to IT. Hopefully, the weather also will change from being rainy to getting sunnier and much more pleasant here as well. So, fingers crossed. And
Everything,
thank you
everything.
for having me here.
Absolutely, Vijay. It's a pleasure for me because I am earlier there was a time where I was collaborating and doing the Excel podcast, but now I'm getting the opportunity of again collaborating with you and knowing more about you in detail. So this is like for me a big moment, and I'm really happy. And as you just told, nothing lasts forever with respect to the weather because the weather will come back with the springtime, and I know you'll again enjoy the best weather in in Milton
Fingers
Keynes for
crossed.
sure.
Yes, fingers crossed.
Fant-
And yeah, it's absolutely great to see you going great guns with what your passion is, especially podcast interviewing people. You get to know them and share their perspective, perceptions, and everything to a wider audience. Really happy, really proud to see you grow. And thank you for actually having me a part of this journey as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vijay. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And, a lot of amazing insights and anecdotes are on the way for sure. All right, then. All right, Vijay. So, without any further ado, let's kick off with our podcast session. Okay, Vijay. So, firstly, can you give me a timeline, of your journey in the IT industry? Like, how did things start for you?
Good. So yeah, I passed out in 1995. Since 95 till date, I've been associated with technology, IT, one way or the other. Similar to you, my move has actually been also from a non-IT background. I did my specialization in civil engineering from one of
Mm.
the reputed institutes and universities in India. And then from there, I got into marketing. Did have a little bit of an inclination in IT, computers, and stuff. Took a little bit of marketing along with IT, automating their marketing department, commercial functions, etc. Slowly came into the mainstream, right? So I've had my hands dirty right from working on mainframes to Java to actually even writing application server code. Those days we never used to have application servers, so we had to write optimizers for Java and stuff, right? Right from there to taking care of Oracle databases, designing entire batch systems, business process management, workflow, whatnot, to what I am here today. Yeah, so
That's a
the last
yeah.
30 plus years of experience, yeah, it's kind of given me a lot of experience across not just software development life cycle, but all the phases and the activities around it, from the perspective of customer service, customer success, expectation management, financial diligence, everything, right? So happy to have had good mentors actually who have helped me come up to this level as well.
That's a fantastic plethora, and a fantastic plethora of technologies that you're associated with, and a beautiful timeline again. Now, Vijay, since since I come from the marketing side and moving myself into the IT, I enjoyed that journey. So when you transition all the way from civil engineering to IT, what was your let's say your journey like? How was the route like?
Not very difficult. I guess I moved from building one thing to another is all it is, right? But
Yeah.
but I think what is most important or what actually going in commercial marketing and sales into IT, what got me there was two things. One, to have an understanding of what the customer needs are, right? And building it to the requirements, right? And once you do a build and a deliver, it's not just delivering satisfaction, but delivering delight. I think the premise
Yes.
stays the same, right? Whether you deliver something tangible or whether you deliver a code. But these are some things that kind of were imbibed into me early on, which has actually helped me be a more rounded person, not just from a technology perspective, but from delivery management, perception management, escalation management, etc. as well.
So I can see, a lot of things that you have done in civil engineering, that actually, resonates a lot with the technological side, especially, those delivery and everything. But I love one word, that you just put across, delivering delight. And these were the things, you used to always mention out, in our town hall meetings, when I was part of Yexel. And I used to love that word really a lot when you used to specify that.
Like, see, at the end of the day, the show starts and stops with the key technologies that you work with, right? There may be a lot of things that a front-ending technology could actually be integrating, interfacing with. But to the end user at the end of the day, that may not be important. For them, the show
Yeah,
starts and stops with the technology that they're seeing, and anything that goes wrong, they say, oh, this is a bad product, this is a bad
exactly.
application, right? So creating an application, creating an overall user experience, ensuring that there are meaningful responses even when there is a timeout of an application,
Yep.
that is important for the end user. But for the organization and for your team, the most important is them understanding that they shouldn't be doing what we call as a hot potato. You get a problem, you just throw it to somebody else and say, he said, she said. That is something
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I
yeah.
do not encourage. And I don't think any of the teams that we work with encourage as well. Right? We try to own, try to ensure that there are resolutions and see how to help support. So that I think that ownership, that initiative kind of converts a satisfaction to a delight.
Absolutely. That's the right point said, and that sums up the point completely. Vijay, I joined Yexle Limited, in the COVID time, in 2020. And back then also I used to always have this question, like, I mean, what was, like what was the inception, behind the creation of Yexle Limited? And also, Vijay, is there any interesting backstory, that is associated with it?
Yeah, so my Yexel, for people who do not know, is an IT services company that exclusively focuses on delivering applications using Appian, which is a low-code business automation, process automation, AI-led platform, right? So, Appian is one of the leaders in the low-code space, right? And does a lot of things around business process management, process orchestration, etc. Right?
Yep.
Erstwhile with the world which you used to call as BPM, workflow automation and
Yeah.
whatnot, right?
Mm.
So I've been in that industry at least for the last 15 plus years. See a lot of technologies evolve, right? Appian, Pega, Lombardi, and a few RPA
Mm.
tools as well. My past company, worked with them since 2014, early 2014. Used to work on technologies like Pega and Appian. Came when I came in to take over EMEA as a geography for delivery and customer success. We were just a handful of people.
Yep.
Grew it from there to at least about 300, 350 plus people. Late 2019. So then what, that organization, these leaders in that organization were very, very entrepreneurial. They were very encouraging of people to say that, start something within the organization itself, right? Failing and falling was a way of them
Mm.
understanding that possibilities are there, always motivated, right? So then I thought, I've been working there, why not start something on my own, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
2020 I started, Feb 2020 came, I started full-fledged in UK and India, and then along with that, within 2 weeks, COVID also came, right? So not only did we get a partnership agreement, but we also got COVID. So we kind of call ourselves a COVID baby
Yeah.
at times. But I think what COVID had taught us is basically wherever there is a risk, there is an opportunity,
Yep.
right? Had big plans of working with large teams across the globe, but COVID kind of clamped everybody to locations, right? So Our biggest pivot at that point of time that we had to do is, whether you're working out of Australia, whether you're working out of Aberdeen, whether you're working out of America or Ahmedabad,
Yeah.
right? People need value and services to be delivered, right? So we kind of went into that mode so that we could actually deliver from a remote perspective. Within a year, then, once COVID started subsiding, for example,
Yeah.
there was a need to actually make yourself more multinational, right? So we started offices
Mm.
in Australia along with UK and India. And then the next pivot was basically to train people because just by taking laterals alone is not sufficient. You need, to actually mentor and grow people and ensure that they contribute back to the ecosystem. So we had a huge training program. Many of the people are still with us as well, who have grown through the links. I think you also joined us at that point
Yeah.
of time for as part of the training programs. And each time there has been a pivot, right, to say how to basically keep ourselves ahead in terms of the Appian ecosystem, right? And our biggest point about that has been not just capability, but to inculcate competency in people as well, right? So capabilities anyone can do. Competencies, this is the right way to do, right?
Yes.
Considering the circumstance, considering the customer landscape, considering the other technologies around and how they interact with each other. So we believe in having competency and competent resources rather than just capable resources. So, every step has been a good challenge, I would say. And thankfully, I had a lot of well wishers, right, outside of the company in the form of customers, in the form of Appian, inside the company, in form of employees and their families, and of course, my own family to actually
Yeah.
support us through the way. It's been an interesting journey. Yes.
That's a beautiful journey. And, now, my answer, the answers that, I mean, the question that I had for a long time, has just come, has been solved now. And it's pretty good to know. Now, Vijay, in COVID time, the business came to a standstill. Many of the businesses, were completely in a fix. So when that came, like, what were the types of solutions, that you were creating? Or let's say, whether it was the in-house solutions or let's say, the projects that you were, working on, like what exactly, was the prime focus for that?
See, I think even before the focus, right? I think the most important thing during COVID was everyone was very remote, right? Even very large organizations and governments were scratching their head on how to enforce a few things and how to bring process control and some kind of sanity into the whole thing, right? That's where actually these kind of low code technologies scaled up brilliantly, right? True to their name, low code, which means drag and drop, you can actually quickly deploy applications, right? So they were like, oh, yeah, I mean, if that is the case, why not we actually automate this process because people are all sitting in different places, different parts of the world, right? So that they could automate them as a process, they could move it from one person to another. There is
Yeah.
absolute traceability, there is absolute auditability, accountability, and everything, right? So these low code tools have all these inbuilt in them, right? In terms of moving them, orchestrating it from one department to another, one user to another, capturing data, real time validation,
Yeah.
real time dashboards, etc. Right? And added to that, it's not like traditional development, which takes about 10 months to do it, rather 10 weeks, for example, right? And that's why it's called low code,
Yeah.
right? So when people saw the power of these platforms and the technologies, many actually applications and many processes that had to be automated, either as a tactical one, so that they could actually go through and go through and pull through COVID time, or anything that was regulatory, which was had a longer term impact, they could quickly actually include that, right? So that was one of the biggest things or advantages and opportunities that low code provided as a platform, right? So
Yeah.
just examples, right? We had applications, regulatory applications for large UK
Mhm.
banks, which they said should be completed in 50 days, 50, right?
Okay. Mhm.
Just to say the magnitude, it was the scope was for at least 250 or quarter million bank customers, touching 16 different integrations with multiple SMSs to do and multiple external teams to touch the and provide the data as well, right? So you could see some kind of complexity there, right? We finished it in 51 days, right? The 1 day is not our fault, but we were
Mhm.
waiting for the bank actually to give a sign off, right? So,
Okay.
so in all practical purposes, when they said 50, we could actually live up to what they wanted, right?
Yep,
So that is the
exactly.
power in of such a platform, and that is the
Exactly.
power with which competent people can deliver it, right? So, as they say, right, the tool is as powerful as how it is used, right?
Yes.
So a combination of tools and combination of the right way of using the tool actually makes it successful, and those were some of the opportunities we were able to bring forth, we were able to demonstrate, we were able to assure to the customer. Once they knew that there was value in what we were giving, there was adoption of what we were doing, they started becoming repeat business. And wherever there was a repeat business, we could identify and understand what are the things that could be reused in order to make them as accelerators or solutions or
Mm.
plugins, for example, in order to make low code even more lower code, like I said, right? Yeah.
Yes. Vijay, when you were saying accelerators and sandboxes and everything, that takes me back to those days, when I started as a junior consultant, and that gives me the nostalgia behind it. But again,
That is also the startup culture, isn't it? Right? I think you
yes.
fitted very well, and that's how we all work, right? No idea is a bad idea. One, right? No question is a bad question. And I always say this, right? When people say, "What do you do?" I say, "I do everything from being a director to a janitor." Right? Because that's how startups are, right? When you start up and when you have to grow, right? Yes, now we are 6 years down the line. As early as 3.5 years ago, we started putting proper people, proper structure, leadership teams in place. But
Yep.
until that, it's almost always a man and a dog kind of a thing, right? So, but that
Yeah.
kind of teaches you a lot of things, right? Because you are, you are in the trenches, hands dirty, trying to do a database design, trying to do a
Yep.
code, sitting with the team, understanding what it is, and you learn, and they learn as well. So that's the fun part of it.
Exactly, Vijay. That gives me an idea, and it summarizes everything well. So Vijay, you just gave me the complete inception, and about how things were in the COVID time, and how it got expanded. But now you just gave me a very let's say a higher level picture about it. If we have to go a little bit deep into it, Vijay, so would you like to give me an overview on the exponential business reach slash growth in the recent times across the regions of US and Australia and also the global like. And also, Vijay, like what were the key initiatives, that were taken by you to achieve those ranks?
Yeah, see, we started, like I said, we started with headquarters in the UK, just me, and then a small 2-3 member team in India. Right. We grew from that to about 200 plus people now. Right. Even today, we do nothing else but make Appian bigger, brighter, and better than what it already is. Right. So Appian has been our bread and butter and our core focus.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, even from a growth perspective, yes, I think, like I said, the well wishers, the awareness, the assurance we created in the market, year on year, we've been growing at least by 40%, year on year, across at least UK, US, Middle East, Europe regions. Australia has been always a very opportunistic market for us. So you get good business, then we do it. Otherwise, it's not massively been a growth, focused geography for us,
Mm.
but it's more an opportunistic geography. But the other, geographies actually are all not just pulling their weight, but they're hitting it out of the park in order to make sure that we are having a consistent 40% or upwards of 40% year on year growth, right? So
Mm.
for that, like I said, what do we do? Yes, customer acquisition has actually been one of our biggest uh, focus areas, right? We always say that we are sales focused. And
Yeah.
Matt, who runs sales for me, used to be
Yep.
ex-Appian as well. He used to run customer success internationally. I mean, the joke that we always say is if someone asks you a question or if you can do it, the first thing we say is yes, but what's the question? right? So, so
Yeah.
yes, it's been, as long as it is qualified as an application or a technology or a process that can be automated on Appian, then yeah, we'll do it. So yeah, like I said, customer acquisition has been a focus, and Appian is a process automation tool, right? So you could automate any process across any domains, right? From being a very small expense management system, which goes from one department to another, to very, very complex financial crime, case management or notification of losses on insurance, for example, or very large and very complex onboarding processes across financial services. Appian can do that, right? So that's the first
Yeah.
was that to ensure
Hmm.
that we can deliver using technology, which means we are a technology company. You give us a problem, we will solve it for you, right? So that was the first growth lever. And like I said, the second was any domain as long as it can be automated on Appian, yes. So then the domains were became a growth lever. Then the
Hmm.
third one, like I said, training and competency and capability became a growth
Yeah.
lever, because you know it already, right? Appian actually rolls out releases every quarter. So what you've learned this month, within 3 months, I wouldn't say it's become obsolete. It's already, there is much more new features that have come over on top of that, right?
Yeah.
So keeping abreast of that technology, and hence the capability part and the competency part I talked about is key. And we used to have Appian for our internal applications itself. So our entire self-service portal was running on Appian. So any new feature comes, that becomes the sandbox, like you said. You do a lot of R&D on that. You already roll it
Of
out for
course.
your
Yeah.
employees. So that way, we've all trained on it, we've all worked on it, we all know how it is, and we're able to showcase that to the customer. So when the customer knows new features are used, and the fact that it becomes backward compatible even from upgrades perspective, then the trust on you starts growing. Then when that parameter grows, then growth within a customer, right, like a land and expand, becomes very high
Hmm.
as well, right? And then they become your referenceability, they become your brand ambassadors in order to radiate to actually the other people in their own domains. And that's how we've grown. And Appian has also been very helpful to us. They acknowledge how good we are. So they've also
Yeah.
helped us with areas to help support them, even in their customer success. So it's been a good journey so far. But it's not an easy one, right? Because you have
Of course.
to, yeah, you have to basically know what to talk, because
Yeah.
selling realistically is extremely important. Not just that, but then living up to what you have sold is important as well.
Hmm.
So I think all these have been the parameters for our growth.
Truly, truly. And, I say that, Vijay, there's going to be nothing stopping. And, you will even achieve more successes, down the line.
Let
That'll
your
that
words
be
come true. Let your words come true.
it. It will for sure. Now, Vijay, like I totally understand, the Australian market, is completely, let's say so with, mining sector, with the banking sector and, with even with the financial sector as well. So, Vijay, when you touched upon, the Australian region, like what was the first, domain or let's say what was the first sector, that you worked on with
We
respect to
worked
the
more
project?
on the government public sector, which is, in the natural resources and all that stuff. Yes, that was the first project we worked on. And then we worked with telecom industries. We also currently work with education industries and with banking financial services industries there. So yeah, focus, like I said, it's been opportunistic, because wherever there is an issue, wherever Appian or the customer, end customer on Appian requires, any kind of expertise from us, yes, we are there to help. But our growth geographies, like I said, has been UK and US. US has grown at least 120% in the last 2 years for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, Europe, UK has grown at least 40% in the last year, right? So yeah, those have been really, really focused growth areas for us.
I think, Vijay, you're kidding that, you have not, touched the Australian region, but actually you have covered every sphere of it. So it's hard to believe that.
It's all relative, isn't it, compared to the other geographies? That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
No, but definitely, you'll touch more upon, the Australian sector because, there are so many opportunities here, and definitely, that'll
Are you trying
come.
to sell yourself with that? If that's the case, you're already in. You're
It's not like
recruited.
that.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah,
I know.
but I mean, again, growing in a geography is also because of like I said, a word of mouth and the credibility someone else can give about you, right? So if you being in that geography, yes, absolutely. If there is credibility coming from you, why not take it? That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's really good to know, about the growth, that Yexel has, experienced. Now, Vijay, like, whenever before, when we had this conversation, you told me that this is a very synergistic approach. So I just wanted to understand, would you like to, share some few points, about the recent acquisition of Yexle Limited by IGT Solutions? Like, what is the synergistic thing about it?
E- I mean, when you say synergy, I mean, pure definition of that word is, a cup, it's a collaboration that, the sum total of one and one is not two, but 11. That's probably what a synergy is, right? So, we've achieved that synergy, like I said, by within the organization and for customers through strong delivery, capability, competency, right? So that was the synergy, and the outcome basically was not just customer satisfaction but delight, right? But and over the last 3 years, even our CSAT, as they call, right, the customer satisfaction surveys that we have done for customers have never gone below 9.3 on a scale of 10, right? So that not just shows the synergy with which how we are working with the teams from the customer to deliver things the right way, timeliness of delivery, quality, etc. So that is a synergy, because they are able to get many more applications into production, many more applications into the live environment. So that is the synergy that we've been working with and giving to the customers, right? And I think, when there are so many synergies, when you have definitely a lot of customers, especially direct customers, and when we have grown vertically, of course, there is always an opportunity for a bigger organization to look at you and see how we fit into their landscape, right? So then that's
Yeah.
how we got acquired by IGT Solutions, right? So IGT has been in this industry for 25 plus years. They have
Mhm.
25,000 employees spread across 14 countries, with quite a lot of delivery centers, right? Their focus primarily has been in the travel, transportation, and hospitality industries, right?
Mhm.
And I was telling you that while Appian works a lot on all industries, because any industry that needs automation can be using Appian, their largest chunk and our largest chunk of customers have been on banking, financial services, and insurance. So from that way, there is a lot of synergy even between IGT and us to cross sell
Mhm.
their services into our customers and ours into their travel, transportation, and hospitality industry. So from that perspective, that is one huge synergy. Then the other synergy is because, when we work with Appian and technologies, right, they work with what we call as a minimum viable product, right? So you're constantly, think of it like Lego blocks, right?
Yeah.
Each block you're kind of, or each set of functionality you're putting together to form the final picture, right? You have a bigger plan in place, you think
Yeah.
big, but you start small. And that kind of how should I say approach, like I said, gives a lot of confidence to the customer that whatever is an idea, whatever is a thought comes to vision, right? So when you start having these kind of MVPs, these kind of iterative methodologies, of course, IGT wants us to help support them that way, so that what happens is they are able to deliver value to their existing projects, to their existing customers as well. So that's another synergy, right? So, and similar to any technology today, everyone is moving from people focus to process focus or process
Mhm.
automation, right? So that again
Yeah.
is a synergy that we are all expecting to actually get as part of the acquisition. A lot of learning there. And like I said, I always say this, the customer list that they have is quote unquote very juicy, right? For us to actually land and expand into from it, travel, transportation, hospitality. So yeah, definite synergies are looked forward to.
Brilliant, brilliant. That's really good to know. So, Vijay, you told me that, IGT Solutions is, completely, into the travel and, transport kind of, project related things. So, taking a
Not
prequel,
completely, but predominantly, right?
predominantly.
Many
So
of
I
their
will,
customers, right?
yeah.
Most of the customers, yeah.
I will try to, rephrase that predominantly. So, having said that, Vijay, like as a prequel, to your Yexel days, or let's say, going back in your career, did you have, this opportunity of, working in projects, that were associated with tourism and travel, like any point of your career?
Yeah. Coincidentally, yes, I have worked in Canada with one of an organization that specializes in MRO, which is the maintenance, repair, and overhaul industry of aircrafts, right? So, we all
Hmm.
know that flights come in, they come into a gate, and then basically, they get cleaned and then they move on, right?
Yeah.
But there is a wider maintenance repair, similar to any automobile you have, right? You've got your car, you have to do your servicing every 5,000 miles. You have to change
Yes.
the oil, you have to change the filter and stuff like that. So aircrafts are much bigger, devices and instruments and tools as well. So they have to go through these checks and they have to go through regular maintenance, repair, and overhaul. And that industry is very, very time focused because you can't keep the aircraft a lot on the ground, because the longer you keep, the more losses you're going to acquire, because the aircraft is not being used to fly people, right? So MRO is an industry that I have worked with, so had definite experience and exposure there. But yes, in previous companies also worked on a few implementations for airports, using case management systems as well. Anything to do with ground handling, as they call it. Right.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's a little bit of experience that I had. Little did I know that I'll be getting associated with a company or an organization that predominantly works on travel transportation industry. And this was about 10, 12 years ago. As early as 2000, oh, even before 2009 is when I used to work with MRO and
Okay.
others. Yeah, but little did I know at that time that that might come in handy. But let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. Maybe there's another
Definitely.
synergy there as well. Like fingers crossed.
Absolutely, and it'll definitely come handy. And a lot of many interesting things are coming in place for you, Vijay, for sure. Now, Vijay, post the acquisition of by the MNC IGT Solutions, like what is Yexel's roadmap and goals for the future and ahead to further strengthen and drive innovation and also deliver the world class customer experience and service altogether. Like, what's with that?
Like I said, IGT, they have already differentiated themselves. They have a very, very solid name in the domains that they've worked on. And we have, like I said, a very solid name in Appian as an industry, right? So now that's what I said. So the way forward is basically ensuring that uh, okay, one other thing that I wanted to say about IGT is they do have a lot of solutions that uses artificial intelligence, right? So they've
Hmm.
kind of actually got a lot of real world solutions that that use LLMs, that use intelligent agentic AI, for example. So they are kind of fairly advanced in that area. So if you look at Appian actually can orchestrate processes, right? But
Yes.
when you say data, AI, LLMs, etc., they are actually scouring, they are looking, and they're doing a lot of grunt work with respect to taking data, collating them, manipulating them, consolidating them from different areas, and driving and deriving intelligence, right? So that intelligence could be in the form of predictive intelligence, prescriptive intelligence, and adaptive
Hmm.
intelligence, right? So
Yeah.
you take that intelligence and say take relevant related next best actions using a process automation platform like Appian. Then together as a stack, you're coming up with what is called as hyper automation or intelligent management, intelligent case management, intelligent data management, or intelligent process management. That's where as an organization we think we are heading towards, right? To ensure we kind of bring those synergies together to
Hmm.
deliver predictive, prescriptive, adaptive, and intelligent case management or case process management, process automation. Appian also has a few other tools around process mining, right, which can tell you where the blocks are, where gaps are with respect to your processes. So you combine that with your intelligence, you're constantly actually improving your processes. You're constantly feeding the improvement areas to AI to make it much more intelligent. and you're using the other aspects of Appian in order to basically say what should be the best next action, right? Or it could even be a straight through process, for example, with minimal intervention or inputs from users. So again, that leads to intelligent automation as well. So that's basically where the headspace is.
Absolutely. That's a very good roadmap for sure, Vijay. Now, Vijay, like, to understand, the real-time tracking of, let's say, industries, people, workers working in the mining sector, or let's say, the end-to-end tracking of, these trucks. I mean, in a
Hmm.
logistics department. So do you, have plans of, using the computer vision, kind of, technology of AI for your projects? Like, is there any thought on that, Vijay?
Yeah, yeah, of course, right. See, these are areas which have always been very, very intensive, right? So there are definitely tools that have come and started evolving from the, like you said, even from the perspective of scheduling, from the perspective of logistics, etc. But you know, and if I combine AI together, we've had, for example, a solution that we created on net zero transmission, right? So which is basically um, not just actually recording the scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, but scope 3, which is also of the vendors, right? So when you are using large organizations where logistics is important, and when level 3 or scope 3 emissions are much bigger, you could use, like you said, different AIs to say what kind of measures that vendors are using in order to control their emissions, and probably even have these AIs recommend, for example, to say which of the organizations that we have as vendors follow much stringent process, who are effective in reducing their scope 3, so that uh, as a parent organization, a sum of scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 becomes much lesser. So you could do all this with AI, you could do all this with data available, you could do it with Appian, you could put the process mining and process HQ that we talked about in order to
Yeah.
optimize every process. So the options are limitless, right? Like I said, these
Yeah.
organizations are now coming into the automation area, right? Digital twin again is one of a very large
Yeah.
area which is actually becoming very interesting in order to understand how proactively you can repair systems, or you can take a judgment call on whether it's economical to rip and replace or to repair systems, right? So in all these areas, again, like you said, these can be applicable not just in airlines, it can be applicable for large turbines, lighthouses,
Yeah.
windmills, whatever it is, right? So
Yeah.
the options are endless from that perspective of how these can be used across many of the industries. With, like I said, with AI and bots coming in and making things very disruptive, so we'll have to adapt as well, right? Probably for us, this is the new version of COVID, where we need to start repivoting and rethinking how we can add value to our to the customers by being valuable to the customer. So let's see.
It will. And as you just mentioned out the point at the starting also, that Appian is a process orchestration tool. So you name it, technology is limitless, and, you can combine everything like a Lego block for sure.
It is. It is absolutely. You can combine components within a platform itself as a Lego block. You can combine features of the customer to make a Lego block. You can have all these technologies together as Lego blocks. The options are limitless. So yeah, let's see. Let's see. It's a very interesting space ahead.
It is for sure. Now, Vijay, like I just wanted to understand, like what are Yexel's, differentiators in the market, on the lines of capability, competency, and trust.
So I told you about capability and competency, right? It's not just trained people, it's people who are competent to recommend the right solution for the customer, right? So from that perspective, we have at least 70% of our organization who are, at least senior or above, from a certification, from an experience perspective. So that way, many organizations, follow what we call as a pyramid model. You have bottom heavy resources, and it slowly
Exactly.
tapers as the experience goes, which is
True.
great, when you're working on larger projects and engagements. But, for us, we work with what is called as a diamond model, which means we are more middle heavy in terms of experience, right? So what that gives to the customer is almost always a first time right kind of a deployment and a delivery. right? So that way, what happens is the scope for understanding the requirements is better, the scope for converting them into specifications is better, the scope for developing them, testing them, and rolling it out is better, which means minimal errors, minimal rework, which also means that the total cost of ownership, or the TCO as they call it for customers, is definitely much more reduced. Right.
Mm.
So from that perspective, yes, definitely we have a lot of competent people. And I think I told you about the upgrades as well. So which means we try to recommend the best features available in Appian, and we almost 99.99% always use all these. That way, what happens is when Appian is going for upgrades, the compatibility is better. And in technical speak, I'm sure you would have heard of this term called deprecated, which means
Yeah. Mm.
a function or a feature that was used in previous release is no longer used now, right? So we
Yeah.
ensure that by doing it in a proper way, the amount of deprecation or rework is almost zero. So that's the kind of competency we bring, and not just that. If you look at it even from a culture perspective, we've been certified Great Place to Work 3 times in a row. We've, our I think we've also 2 times in a row been named as best place for women to work, and we've been
Mm.
among
Mm.
the top 50 companies in India from the middle, how should I, small medium enterprise, right, which is up to 1,000 employees. So we are top 50. Like 41% of Yexel is women employees. We have people from, I think, 7 or 8 nationalities already as well. So from that perspective, diversity, inclusivity is definitely there. And I told you about the CSAT, the satisfaction greater than
Yeah.
9.3 on a scale of 10. So much to that, I'm sure you would have heard of Everest as an analyst report, similar
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Gartner and Forrester's.
Absolutely.
So they've kind of 2 years in a row named us as the top contender in the Appian. So if you go and have a look at the reports, you will see that David and the Goliath story, where we as a 200 people employee are kind of leading the pack, even with much bigger, much known names. So the next stop being the leaderboard for us is basically at the aspiration. So yeah, so from a culture, from a competency, from basically the customer satisfaction, we definitely want to set ourselves apart. And these are some of our differentiators. Right. Always we feel people buy people, people buy from people. So having that engagement, having that relationship, having that trust with the customer. Again,
Mm.
9.3 is a reflection of the trust and the assurance that they have on
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so that's these kind of set us apart, and everyone is aligned, right? When a salesperson says something, then the delivery is aligned to it, because the salespeople are also technically competent. It's not that they just want to sell for the sake of selling and
Yeah.
leave a hot potato with the delivery team. It's never like that. So we are aligned through and through.
Absolutely. And it's always like, like a connected thing. Everything is wired up. And it's like a workflow. If you see, the work, done by everyone, it's also like a workflow in real time.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, any project, any customer, any engagement, and the organization is basically like a spider web, right? You hit it in one place, the effect actually is through the web. So similar, like what you said, it's all very interconnected, actually, right? So
Absolutely, Vijay. Yeah.
yep.
That is right. So Vijay, when I see, in your background, I can see, the Great Place to Work certified. So, Vijay, when you were, honored with this kind of, with this kind of a thing. So like, what was your immediate reaction to that? How did you feel?
Related, because it is given by a very very reputed organization, right? And it is a validation of what we are trying to do, right? So definitely, of course we all can do the surveys ourselves, right, with whatever we want. But when you're going with organizations like this, yes, they've got benchmarks, because they have a perspective across the industry, across the domain, across the group, or the sample set that is being looked at. So getting these kind of validations from external agencies always is basically a motivator, for us to do even better, right? Yeah, our scores have definitely been even much better than the benchmark and benchline. And of course, always the bench line keeps increasing as well, right? So, that's why we also try to keep ahead of the curve, so that, our validation is not just gracing through and passing, but, coming out in flying colors.
Absolutely. Vijay, first time I think when you got this, recognition, let's say in 2022, probably, or 2023, from there, I've seen, Excel has, just come to a rise, with respect to its performance, with respect to the delivery side, everything. So that really impressed me. When I used to be in these town hall meetings and, used to hear this, I was like, wow, Excel is really achieving the rank for sure.
Which is also an important thing, right? I think you touched upon one more thing, about which is the trust, right? So I almost always kept only talking about the trust we have established with the customers, but there is another most important trust that you need to have with your employees and within your team as well, right? And the only way you could actually gain that is through transparency, right? And like you said, the town halls, we've been very transparent to say the wins. We've been
Yeah.
very happy to celebrate success. Not just the success alone, we are also happy to celebrate, the weddings, the new arrivals of the little ones,
Yeah.
as well as part of that. So that kind of gives a sense of belonging, to the employees, right? And yes, you could say that I have done a little bit of a copying or a plagiarism from Google, but how Google plays around with their logos, we do a little bit of that as well thematically, right? For major festivals, major occasions, events, or any international days, for example. We
Yeah.
kind of change the logos, the backgrounds, everything like that, so that it kind of, as a brand, it gives a sense of belonging to people inside the organization, and externally, it also shows how we are aligned, and how we want to actually showcase our solidarity or our support for those events, for those festivals, whatever it is, irrespective of who people are, right? Uh, you know, so that's how I think we were able to generate a lot of sense of, trust within the team, or the ownership among the team, the sense of belonging within the team as well.
Absolutely. That, completely, sums up the point for me, Vijay. Now, Vijay, like, you just told me that, it's plagiarism. I don't say, it's inspiration. It's complete inspiration. And, you have that, that fanboy moment, or let's say that complete,
Correct.
huge respect, towards Google. So everything is an inspiration. Nothing is plagiarism for me. Yeah.
I think big, start small, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
nothing wrong in emulating and taking the best practices, right? Otherwise, we all will be reinventing the wheel, if we don't take the best practices and or derive inspiration. That is correct. But yes, the ideas and the concepts have been good, and we've taken it from there. But yes, we've evolved it in a different way. You're right about that.
Absolutely. So, Vijay, going by, Excel's tagline, innovation driven, quality assured, like, I just wanted to understand, like, what does that mean to you, personally, and how do you see that, come alive, in Excel's work?
See, I mean, people start feeling bored, right? Or they kind of feel that they get stuck in a rut if they're doing the same things again and again, right?
Yep.
I think the only thing that is constant is change, right? And and sometimes what happens is, when there is change, people also actually don't want to actually align to the change, and there is a lot of resistance also, right? The only way you can break that cycle of, being resistant to change while change is important for growth, is by breaking it and introducing a component called innovation. Because the
Yep.
moment you start saying you're innovative and creative, you're doing something new. When you do something new, that is change. But since it is very creative and innovative, basically people start accepting it, and like you said, get inspired by it,
Yeah.
right? So that
Yeah.
is the background behind the innovation for us, right? And again, you can't just innovate for the sake of innovating, right? I don't want to
Yes.
create something which is not going to be useful in the market, or is going to basically bring some kind of, um, a breakthrough in the market, right? So if there has to be that kind of a breakthrough, and if it has to be adopted, the one biggest problem is, again, coming back to, people being resistant to change, to the external world. How do you give them the assurance that it works in a way that the entire innovation is thought through end to end. It is implemented properly that way that it doesn't break, right?
Hmm.
And it ensures it sits and works properly with any mission critical application. So from that perspective, quality is definitely important, right? So the moment you have proper innovation, which is relevant and related to a market or a business problem or a pain point or an issue that you want to resolve, and when it gets rolled out, for example, with the right quality so that the customer or anyone doesn't have to worry how many times it breaks, then you have kind of driven innovation or you've delivered innovation, but you've delivered quality and you've assured that delivery through quality as well, right? So that is the tagline, right? Or
Indeed.
that is the background behind that. But even if you're doing regular projects, we always tell you've heard this many a times from me, right? No question is a bad question. No idea is
Yeah.
a bad idea,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Because in a project, I always tell this: when in doubt, ask. Right? If you don't ask, then you're assuming, right? So when you ask that, you are kind of triggering a lot of thought process, a lot of innovation to people also, and then you're kind of giving them the best things that is available but at the same quality, right? And again, CSAT also speaks for quality because a customer is not going to be satisfied if you don't give them the quality
Right.
more than what is expected, right? So from all that perspective, you know uh, asking the right questions, adopting the best practices, not assuming that yes this will work, having that kind of an engagement creates that environment for creativity and innovation. And once that comes, it gets translated to requirements and stories. How do we assure that, and how do we ensure we deliver it on time, on quality? That forms the
Hmm.
tagline. So this is from both the perspective, anything new and anything existing from a delivery to the customer. That's what the tagline means.
Totally, totally. That's a very nice way of, that actually, refines the point completely. Now, Vijay, you've been to multiple, Appian events and, Appian World events. So out of all the events, that you've attended, which was like, the light bulb moment for you? Let's say, which was the event you enjoyed the most? I'm not, taking sides here, but whose discussion, or let's say session you were impressed the most?
See, like I said, every session has been important. Every session has been interesting, but every session has given one light bulb moment or the other for sure. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the biggest light bulb moment is uh, when we started Yexel after COVID. The first Appian we went, right. It was just me and the head of technology who was sitting
Yeah.
in because
Yeah.
even quarantine and everything was required, and then it was slowly
Yeah.
coming down. I think it was late 2021 or 22 when we started attending these events. We were not that big at that point of time, right? We're still about 45, 50 people or something like that. Not a very big size compared to the big fives and the TCSs or the
Mm.
Wipros, for example, right, where they have huge practices, center of competencies, right? But still, the moment we went there, they were like, Excel, I know about you. You guys are doing a good job.
Oh, okay. Right.
Customers coming and telling us, oh, I know, I heard about you. I heard your interview process. That's a standard. Coming from the people, right? Like the people in the ecosystem, and then different customers coming and saying, you guys are doing a brilliant job, and Appian themselves bringing a few of their prospects and few of the customers to say Yexel is great, you
Oh,
should talk to
wow.
them.
Yeah.
That was a light bulb moment. Why it was a light bulb moment? It was because it kind of gave us an extreme warm feeling that Appian is not just about the number of people you have as a competency. It's about the quality that we bring. It's about the contributions we bring to the ecosystem, and how much they've valued us as people, how much they've valued us as Excel, and how much they've valued our outputs to the ecosystem. So
Hmm.
that was one of the biggest light bulb moment, I would say. It was a more a aha moment actually, right? I think I talked about this aha moment even in one of my
Yeah,
podcasts and posts. So I think that tops the chart, right, of all of these.
absolutely. Absolutely. Like, you just gave me the idea about, what was your light bulb moment. Now, do you have any, interesting, travel anecdote, that you attended for these, Appian World events? Like any interesting or let's say funny one?
I would say that, but your podcast might get banned. But nevertheless, I'll still go ahead and say this.
Okay.
So this was, this was when I was actually coming from an Appian event back home to the UK. So I'm standing at the security in the US, and one of the control officers was looking at my passport. He looked at me a couple of times, and he said, I was tired by then, right? Like 4 5 days of constant activity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This
Hmm.
guy's like, "Can I have another ID?" I'm like, "That sounded weird.
What?
Nobody should ask me for another ID when I'm showing a passport." I'm like, "Why?" And the officer said, "Your name is too long. You know my
What?
full name, but I go by Vijay Poondy, but my name is much longer, right?
Okay.
Suffice to say that the only alphabets that are not there are Z and something else, right?
Oh, is it?
Uh,
Okay.
it, it is a much longer name. So I was kind of already, on the edge, standing in the conferences for days and entertaining and all that. I was just ready to go and plop on the flight. And when he said, "Can I have another ID?" and he said, "My name is long," I kind of snapped and I said, "It's not my fault. You should ask my dad." So blame
All
it on
right.
my dad. It's not my fault. I just have this ID. And thankfully, the officer found it amusing and let me pass as well. But yeah, that's one of the moments
Okay.
that kind of still sticks in my mind.
Okay. So, in which year did this happen? And by the way,
It was 2023 or 24, very recent. Yeah,
okay, a recent one.
yeah.
Vijay, you'll be surprised to know, what my full name is. It's Akhil Navluri, but again, my full name goes like Devi Sai Akhil Navluri, and that's a big
Yeah.
name again.
Yes, yeah, but I think I would still beat you hands down with how big my name is. We'll have an offline conversation on
Sure, sure,
that.
definitely. I think that's for the other time,
That's
for
for
sure.
another time. Yes.
Yeah. So Vijay, I was, completely asking you about Yexel and everything, but since, I was part of Yexel, myself, so would you, ask me like, what was my experience like and everything?
Go on, go on. See, like I said, it is always nice to get a validation from, an external source. I don't want to call you a third party, as you've been the first party, second party, and now a third party because you're external.
Yeah.
More so because you have had much, much more experience now, right? You've kind of been in a different. You were in India before. Now you're in a different geography. You've met so many people as part of your podcast. You've
Yeah.
got a varied level of experience now. So definitely would be good to understand how two things. One, what is the things that you have learned from Excel that is helping you now, right?
Hmm.
And what has been the best aspect of Excel, right? From a delivery, competency, whatever perspective.
So for me, the first thing, that what I have, grabbed, from Excel and whatever I'm implementing now is curiosity. Curiosity, why I say curiosity? Because, there was a plethora of projects that I was part of, and I was, part of teams, that were headed by many different people, or let's say eminent industry leaders. So, observing their work, how they are talking to the clients, what is that, that USP of them, and, how are they able to, help the client understand things, translate the things, and how they are able to handle the team. Those things got intrigued, and the thing that I got the intrigue the most was Appian's processes and the workflow. So
Yeah,
these kind of things, Appian actually gave me that wider picture, that look at world in a different angle, from the technological lens. So Appian was a starting point for me, and so
it is.
and even Yexel. Yes,
It is.
so that was
Yes,
the thing.
because Appian brings a lot of people together, right? Because you can have business analysts collaborate, you can have the technical team collaborate, you can have the data guys collaborate, the AI, everyone, right? Because that's a platform, right? It's a process platform. It's very pictorial as well, right? So from that side, it's
Yeah,
easy to
yeah.
learn, it's easy to understand. But I think what I have always liked about people like you is basically two things. One, like you said, the curiosity. I think more than the curiosity, the flexibility and the adaptability. I think that is important because wherever we put you in, you were
Yeah.
actually, doing justice to it because of the curiosity and because of your willingness to learn and more importantly to adapt, right? Right from business analysis to development to
Yeah.
testing to, writing requirements to basically playing it back to the team to running podcasts, right? to running away from Excel to actually start podcast on yourself. Everything, right, has been curiosity driven.
Yes,
I'm saying it in a very
absolutely.
nice way, not in a bad way, but
I
you know,
totally 100% Vijay, 100%. We always have this conversation, and I really love, that sense of humor that, you bring about, in the conversations for sure. The thing, Vijay, that developers used to, hate me up the most when I was a QA because I was a nightmare for them because I used to come up with every other defects. I was like, boss, here, there's a defect and everything like that. So that was
and that's what
always,
we still do, right? We are trying to have people not just kind of, how should I say, I don't want to actually have them to have a tunnel vision to say that if I'm a developer, I'll only do this,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
We toss them into everything so that two reasons. One, they understand and appreciate that department. And second, to say that, how painful it can be for the others if they do something incorrectly, right? So say for example production support, you need to ensure that you think on your feet, which
yeah,
means if someone opens a code where there is a problem in real live environment and the service is stopped, they need to know how to fix it. And you put them in that department, if they end up cursing another developer, then they will get a realization that, oh, I used to do that as well, you know so at least it'll give them a best practice to basically make
yeah,
sure that they put proper comments, make sure that they elaborate what they want, so that it becomes more meaningful for another person. So it's like you end up understanding the pain or the issues, the challenges, right, if you are put in that area, and then you become appreciative of what should be there so that it makes life easy for people downstream.
yeah,
Right. So yeah, it
sure.
is always a learning, and that's what we do. We kind of try to put people in different areas so that
Yes.
share the pain, as they call it, or you know mature and grow. Right. These are the two options that are available, isn't it?
100%, understanding, from one's, perspective, or let's say, putting in others' shoe for sure. The other thing which I just wanted to mention, what the things that I used to like work about, in being part of Yexel. One thing was, if one person or let's say one resource, a junior consultant, a consultant, if he used to do a great job, he was celebrated, in the town hall and he was treated like a rock star. So that was something, with all those amazing taglines. So that was something really I just loved it to be honest.
Yes. Small drops make a mighty ocean, right? So you
Yeah, yeah,
you definitely need people at different levels. Otherwise, it's not a team, right? Yeah, teamwork is all about right from that level, smallest level to the biggest level, right? So
indeed, indeed. For sure. So Vijay, before we, conclude our podcast session, let's take a lighter route. All this while, Vijay, I was completely, bombarding you with the questions about, IT, your journey, about Yexel, about the recent acquisition of Yexel by IGT Solutions, about AI and Appian, low code, no code, everything. But this time I'm going to go into a lighter route, not talking about anything technical or anything about what we just spoke about, but this time only about your likes and interests in the form of a
okay, so
rapid
is
fire
this
round.
is this a payback for my question to you, or
No, it's a fun round for sure.
and I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah, go on.
Yep. So Vijay, yeah. So since you're based in the UK, Vijay, so like, do you have any favorite football team that you follow?
I usually don't, but Man City is something that I follow. Yeah.
Manchester City. Okay, I know. All right. Now, Vijay, like now, I'm just wanted to. I'm pretty curious. Like we had this, a particular round, in the Excel times where we were singing a lot of Tamil songs and everything. But I never got the opportunity to ask you personally, who is your favorite Tamil actor of all time?
Of all times,
Yeah.
right? Interesting question. Yeah, I like. I mean, if you put them on a same scale, I usually like Kamal and Rajnikant together, right? I used to be a big fan of Kamal before, but then kind of equalized as I grew up.
Equalizer.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's nice. So if you have to, pick out your favorite movie of, each actor, what would that be? Or let's say a multi-starrer of both of them.
there is a new movie that's coming that's
Yeah, yeah,
becoming
yeah.
a multi-starrer of both, right? But there used to be a very old movie in Tamil called Ninaittale Inikum. What that means is, um, you know, um, it's how should I say? It roughly translates to it's tasty even if I think about it. Something like that is the title. So where
Yeah.
both Rajni and Kamal have acted together. I mean, it's one of my first ever movies that I remember growing up. Going in my uncle's bullet, and that's where my passion
Oh.
for driving also started. So yes, that definitely has a lot of fond memories for me. The songs, the movie by itself, yes.
Hmm. I watched that movie in the Telugu version, but
How
it
did
was
you? Okay.
fine. I did.
Long time ago, right? By the time you
Yeah.
grew up, it would have been few decades as well, and that genre would have passed. You know,
Yeah.
anyway,
Long time for sure.
long time
Yeah.
ago. Yes,
Absolutely. So, Vijay, like, if I have to, ask you, like, what is your favorite Tamil food of all time? What would that be?
my Tamil food, sambar vada.
Sambar vade. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's my favorite food as well, but I call it as medu vada, or in Andhra we call it as just vada, or let's say gare.
Vada. Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
the
Yes, yes. I know that, right? I mean, vada, yes, but definitely, I'm a big fan of sambar. I'm a big fan of vada. So both coming together,
a
it's one
lethal
hearty
combination.
whole meal actually, right? By itself.
Hmm. That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. And Vijay, I came to know that you come from Chennai. And so coming from Chennai, what are the three best restaurants that you would like to recommend our listeners to have a taste at?
see, things have changed a lot actually, right? Even in Chennai, I go there every quarter, but I see things have changed. I mean, during my days, Saravana Bhavan used to be really, really good, right? Even before that, there was a very old iconic uh, hotel called Ratna Cafe, right? And they were known for their sambars actually, right? We used to actually have idlis as side dish for sambars. That's how unlimited the sambar used to flow,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So and every time their quality was like really good. So yeah, definitely used to like Ratna Cafe before Saravana Bhavan, but nowadays I think I'm kind of tending more towards the A to B, right? For and it's also closer to my house, right? So yeah,
You know,
probably the three ones.
the surprising part, Vijay, I've been to Colombo, the previous year.
Hmm.
And there in Colombo, we spotted an Adyar Anand Bhavan restaurant. And that was like gold for us.
Here you have, in UK, you've got some of the Vasanta Bhavans, Aryar Bhavan, Anayam, Sarana Bhavans and stuff, where you can kind of get something closer to home. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. That's right. So if there is one particular street food of Chennai that, people should try, what would that be?
Street food of Chennai.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of um, uh, ground nuts, right? So, you've got a lot of hawkers who sell either roasted peanuts or, steamed ones. That is definitely one thing that you can try. The second one is whenever you go to beach in Chennai, you will have these guys selling raw mangoes and chana, right?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that is definitely another combination that actually fondly takes me back to Chennai.
Okay. hmm Pretty
Right? I mean,
interesting
nowadays you
combination.
get everything from everywhere, right? You get a chaat, you get
Mm.
a samosa, and everything everywhere. But if you look at those traditional ones, yes, those peanuts, by the street side, or for example, these chana ones are good, right? That is there. Or when I was very young, they used to have the late night son papadis coming, with those ding 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 bells.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
kind of, yeah, it's like 10 o'clock at night kind of a thing. So that is another thing that I would love usually. Yeah.
Nice, nice. That's an interesting combination for sure. Now, Vijay, like for sure, yeah. So Vijay, like you travel the world, with respect to Appian events, and even with respect to your former projects that you were part of, or former companies. Out of all the travels that you've experienced, what is your favorite travel destination?
Any day I would go back to New Zealand. Yeah,
New Zealand. Okay.
New Zealand has been my travel. Is one of my go-to places that I long to go back again. Yeah, New Zealand first. Definitely Canada is the second, and then Germany is used to be really really good. I used to live in all these places at least a couple of decades ago and stuff. I'm still keeping those as my reference points. Right. Yeah, definitely New Zealand tops the chart for sure.
Fairly good choice. It's really good. And I've never been to New Zealand. For me, who's based in Sydney, going all the way to New Zealand would be a good thing to do.
Let's do it together sometime, maybe.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, why not? Done deal for sure.
sounds good.
So, since you just told about New Zealand, like what is your pick? Would you prefer the mountains or do you prefer the beaches?
Yeah, I'm a beach guy.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely, you have all the elements there, right? Earth, water, everything there, right?
Hmm.
So
Truly, truly, for sure. Now, the other thing is like Vijay, like my last four questions in this rapid fire round to you.
thankfully,
So,
four at least you've given me a hint. So thank you for that.
I saved
Go
the
on.
day for you.
You sure have. You sure have. Otherwise, I'll have to be scratching my head to find an answer. But go on.
Perfect. All right. So, Vijay, like what was your first book, or let's say that you've read, or let's say what was the last book that you've read? If I can summarize the point as that.
I read a lot of spiritual books these days.
Hmm.
Some books by the recent ones are from Om Swami that I'm reading now. Of course, we all started when we were young. We used to start with the Enid Blyton's books, right? So that
Hmm.
probably a
Not yet.
long time ago. Yeah, right. Those used to be the books that you started with,
Mhm.
and then moved on to different ones. And now I'm more into the spiritual books, right? Yeah. So latest ones are from Om Swami that I'm reading.
Hmm. Okay, that's nice. So, like Vijay, what do you
There's
prefer? Do
another
you
book
prefer?
that
Yeah.
that I'm telling with I'm kind of reading as well as Radical Candor. I don't know if you've heard of that. That's definitely a good book that we are trying to actually read and also encourage our teams to read so that they can understand how to candidly respond and say no when it should actually be a no. Right.
Hmm.
So yeah, Radical Candor is one book that I'm going through or reading now as well. It's a reread also. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, reread. That's pretty nice because I've never done a reread much. But when I hear people doing a reread, I'm like, okay, pretty nice. Getting back to the same space, that you were already in.
Or too cheap to invest on new Kindle books.
Brutal truth.
Could be.
Could be, could be.
Could be. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So,
Or
Vijay, the
your
next
wife
question.
probably says, that I'm going to throw all these books to charity, and you're like possessive of a few books, and you start reading it again,
What?
just to show that could be one of the above.
Mhm. I can't relate to that particular statement, but that sounds funny.
Yeah,
Okay,
some of
that's
these
that's
come
pretty
from
nice.
experience as well, is all I can say. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I can really see a lot of things coming from there for sure. So, Vijay, I'll give you two options. Like, what do you prefer? Do you prefer tea or do you prefer coffee?
I prefer tea actually. I started on coffee very late, but yes, definitely tea is my go-to.
Pretty nice. So, Vijay, like, what was the first car that you purchased?
The first car I got was a Maruti 800.
Maruti 800. Okay.
It's a tiny version. I mean, just for viewers who do not know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably half the size of a Nissan Micra, right? Someone as tall as you will not fit in, but someone who is vertically challenged like me, for example, it used to feel like premium economy sitting in those cars. Um,
Okay.
yeah, but that was my first car.
Maruti 800, right? It takes back, for the millennials like me, it takes back to those nostalgic days of 2000s when we were kids.
Yes, they kind of evolved from being Maruti Suzuki to Zen,
Yep.
800s to Zens to what Swift now. So you could say it's probably 60%
Desire.
the size of a Desire. Yeah, yeah, it's 60% the size of a Desire. And you can see. Then you could do the math. You could do the math of how compact it was. Yeah, that was my first car.
Absolutely. So, Vijay, like, what is your favorite hobby?
Quite a few. I
Mhm.
do a little bit of sketching. And I do a little bit. I used to do a little bit of sculpting as well, but when I'm bored nowadays, I kind of sketch and doodle a bit. Yes,
Hmm.
that's yeah.
Nice. So, Vijay, before we come to the end of our podcast session, like, I mean, I just wanted to understand, like, would you, since, you're Tamil speaking. So I just wanted to, take it from your end, if you
Hmm.
want to, sum up your experiences, being part of my podcast initiative and, collaborating with me, how would you like to, frame out in your mother tongue?
I'll probably explain that in English first so that people will be able to
Sure,
understand,
sure.
right? Um, you mean the experience of this podcast?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So the experience of this podcast for me is you made me feel welcome, right? I didn't have any nervousness. It's as good as talking to a friend, right? So if I want to say that in Tamil, ஒரு நண்பனோட பேசுற ஒரு அனுபவம் எனக்கு கிடைச்சிருக்கு, ரைட்?
Mm.
எனக்கு என்ன பேசணும்னு தோணுதோ என்னால பேச முடிஞ்சது. What that means is I could speak my mind or I could speak what I wanted to. So
Yep.
இந்த அனுபவத்திற்கு நன்றி. Thank you for this experience.
And I mean, I cannot, summarize this in Tamil, but I would just like to say it in Telugu. ఈ ఆపర్చునిటీ ఇవ్వడానికి నాకు చాలా థ్యాంక్స్. చాలా నచ్చింది నాకు మీతో కొలాబరేట్ చేయడానికి.
ఆల్వేస్ అండి. తర్వాత మళ్ళీ ఇంకొకసారి చేస్తాం.
Definitely.
My Telugu is very choppy, very poor, but hopefully I said it the right way.
You did. And yes, Vijay, so it was lovely. And again, it was like, it was like like old days, when we were working, when I was part of Yexle and when we used to have the conversation. So
We
it took
were
me
part
back to
of
those
Excel.
days.
We were
Yes.
always, yeah. When not just you were a part of Excel, we were a part of Excel always, yeah.
Yeah. So it was a lovely conversation. And finally, thank you, Vijay, for taking time from your busy schedule and being part of my podcast initiative. It was such a lovely conversation again, reliving
Anytime.
all those old days and knowing more about your journey, which I never asked you about back when I was working. And how you started, what was the inception of Yexel, what's your take with respect to Appian, the process orchestration, many different facets of technology. So it was such a lovely conversation, and thank you so much once again, Vijay, for this golden
Anytime.
opportunity.
Anytime. And Akhil, I think, like I said, one of the things that I've liked about you is your curiosity. Most importantly, your willingness, right? Sometimes I'll say like, do you want to? I know you love singing. When you say like, do you want to sing? You've never been shy, right? Same way when I put you in areas you've never been shy, right? Because I mean that is a caliber which brings out the true curiosity in you, right? There is nothing wrong in failing. There's nothing wrong in falling. You in fact learn more when you fail and fall rather than be first time successful, right? So
Yeah.
and curiosity is what teaches you a lot, teaches you bigger experiences. So be curious, be inquisitive, right? Always keep breaking new boundaries, right? So proud of where you've come and what you've come up to now, right? And when your passion becomes your profession or your mainstream, nothing can stop it. It can only grow, right? So keep growing, keep shining as always, and you'll always have me as someone who's cheering you always for your successes. So yeah, keep shining.
Thank you so much, Vijay. That really means a lot, and I always consider you to be my mentor. And you've helped me out throughout my tenure with Excel, and definitely, this is a memorable episode for me. And yeah,
Anytime,
thank you for
anytime.
these
Thank you for
kind
that.
words.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity as well to spotlight the Excel. So thank you for that. Best wishes to you also, Akhil. Right?
Thank you, Vijay. So, yeah,
Yes, man.
listeners, on this note, this is your host, Akil Navluri, signing off. We would be back with another podcast episode with another eminent industry leader very soon. Till then, keep listening. Goodbye, stay tuned, and au revoir. Thank you.